I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Emmy winner William H. Macy, who just scored his 15th Emmy nomination of his career and 6th to date, or forever, for his role on Shameless. First of all, congratulations on your 15th Emmy nomination. That is really impressive.
Thank you, sir. It feels good. I won't lie to you. It feels really good.
So, if you don't mind me asking, how did you find out? Because, I mean, were you surprised? And what was that day like when you found out you were back at the Emmys?
I didn't expect it at all. And I found out later around noon. I'm not on social media, and I don't troll around on the internet, so I'm relatively out of touch. And my assistant came in and said, "Congratulations." And I didn't know what he was talking about. And he said, "You got an Emmy nomination." And it was so unexpected. I mean, our show has been running for 11 years, and I thought we'd sort of slipped away out of people's consciousness, except for the fans who wanted to see how it ended. And it felt wonderful. It's like a big fat cherry on the best cake anybody ever had.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because the Emmys sometimes move on from shows after they've given it a bit of recognition, but they decided to go back to Shameless for one last hug. Before we get into more detail on that, a lot of people had to go through this very challenging time of this pandemic. I'm really interested to know what shooting season 11 was like for you and the cast and crew during a very difficult pandemic.
We were one of the first back on the lot at Warner Brothers. And I think they chose us because John Wells, who is the grand poobah of Shameless, runs such a tight ship. I think they realized if we couldn't do it, nobody could do it. Our show is really difficult to shoot. Our scripts are 63 pages long, and we have 7 days to shoot them. So it's run and gun. It's really fast. And it's an ambitious show. So it's full out warfare when we're in production. The protocols were pretty specific. We got tested almost every single day. We had 2 tests, the one that you go someplace and it takes 2 days to get back, and then the instant test. We had COVID people, a whole staff who would walk around and say, "Separate, please put your mask on." We had made pods of everything. It was John's idea. So if somebody got sick in the camera department, that person and 3 others would go quarantine. And then there was another pod that could move in. The idea being we would never have to shut down. And we didn't. One day there were about 14 positives, and everyone knew it must be a problem with the test. And that we shut down for about a half a day. And it was indeed a faulty test, and we were back at work. By my count, we might have had 20 positives, and of those 20, I know 2 people actually had symptoms, got a little bit sick. The rest, I think, probably were false positives, because the whole cast and crew took it deadly seriously. I know I went to work and then I came home, repeat if necessary. And we would wear masks all the time. You had a color badge to tell you who was allowed on set. The idea was to protect the actors as much as possible. We would rehearse with the masks on, take the mask off to do the scene. And inevitably someone would forget to take the mask off and we'd have to start again. And then people would come around and say, "Put your mask back on, please." But everybody was really good. And I'm going to say it slowed us down by 10%, perhaps. I know we had very few extras. They streamlined a lot of the scripts, not so many location shoots. But it looked like a season of Shameless. It wasn't awful at all.
It's a testament to what can happen when you have a really good team organizing and making sure that everyone's safe and able to work. And it's a great example of how this can be done in this new era. It also reminded me, Shameless is when I remember when it first started, I was much younger.
So was I.
And yeah, 11 seasons is impressive, mate. Like that doesn't happen every day. As you well know, you've been in this business for long enough. What was the overall feeling when a long-running show like this comes to an end? Was it bittersweet? Were you ready for it to move on? What were your thoughts?
Well, both of those things. I was thinking about this earlier. I'm getting to the age where I'm thinking about the end, and making. You've got to think about end of life. You've got to make an end of life plan, in my opinion. My father died with dementia, and it's not the way he wanted to go. And it was really rough. And I saw him through that. So it was a hodgepodge of emotions. The show had been really good, and I wanted it to be good all the way to the end. I didn't want to, quote unquote, jump the shark. And it felt like we were getting close to the end of its natural life. And I think we could have gone a couple more years, but we ended with a really great season, and I'm proud of that. As far as doing it, I talked to John a lot about it, John Wells, and all the writers. Frank had to get his comeuppance. You can't live like that and not pay the price sooner or later. And I think it was my idea that it would be COVID that would ultimately take him down, and not the dementia. And because of my experience with my father, John Wells had a family member that got Alzheimer's. It was a tough get, because at once we had to keep it funny and light. And on the other hand, I wanted it to be truthful and to have the weight that it really deserved. And a lot of the writers didn't know a lot about dementia. And more than in any other season, I had a lot of notes for them. I drove some of them crazy about it. And at the end, when it became acute, I didn't know how to feel about it. It's one of those, it's taken me a long time to realize this about acting. Sometimes when you look at a scene and you think, what does this mean? How do I play it? How does it make me feel? The really honest answer is, I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. And I experienced that in so many of these. And John kept the ending somewhat of a secret. I knew Frank was going to die, but I didn't know. He kept it a secret as to how it would happen. And I love what he wrote. John wrote the last episode with that ascending thing. And so I really only had it about 7 days before we started shooting it. And I didn't know how to play so much of it. And I felt comfortable with that, because I thought that was the reality, People don't die twice. You only get one shot at it. And I think it must be very bewildering and unknown territory. And I kept a lid on it. It was okay. I was at times emotional about it, but we had a lot of work to do, because, as I said, shooting that show was tough. And it didn't hit me until the final, one of the, perhaps the next to the last day I shot. It was that scene where they had me on a lift, and digitally they took the lift out. So I'm rising up, and I was so proud that I took my beer with me. I was proud of that gag. And anyway, I'm up there, and Chris Chulak was directing, and he said, Bill, look down at the camera. This is the last image of Frank Gallagher. And I lost my shit. I just started blubbering like a baby. It kills me now, but I had spent so much time with this guy, and I loved him so much, and with the family, and it was such a part of me. It's hard to remember what my life was before Shameless. there's a rumor out there I used to be an actor.
Yeah.
But it just, I just fell apart. We did find a take that was a little more modulated, but that's when it hit me. Thank God it was at the end.
Wow. And that's why, I mean, the episode, the final episode, Father Frank Full of Grace, is the episode that you've been nominated for, because every actor has to submit one. It's typically a really compelling performance as this guy that we've been following for so long, and then he finally falls apart and then succumbs to this serious illness. I found it heartbreaking, but yet typical Shameless. It still makes me laugh.
I know.
I'm just really curious. I don't know how the writers are very, very talented, because you thread this needle very carefully, because it could all just go pear-shaped, and yet it doesn't. Do you know what the secret is to Shameless and how you're able to toe this line so carefully?
You do have to do it carefully, but I think we've all had the experience that you go to a funeral and that's when you think of the funniest things to say. You know, at the most inopportune time, you think of these funny gags that you could do. I think the writers were attuned to thinking of those things. There was a great misdirect, and that really helped us keep the levity at the end, because everyone thought he was going to overdose and that would be the end of Frank Gallagher. And it was a terrific misdirect, I thought. And I don't know, I wrote one of these things early on. And so I got to sit in the writer's room, and they all need therapy. I'm not going to lie to you. They're really seriously deranged people, but it was fabulous to see how it would work. Someone would say something, and John gave this little speech about, you can say anything in here, and if you're afraid you're going to be offended, this is not the writer's room for you. There are no holes barred. And every once in a while, a writer would say, what if? And everyone would go, oh my God, wow, Jesus, what's the matter with, oh, that's disgusting. And there'd be a pause and someone would say, but you know what you could do is, and then they'd start to shape it, and they'd take this germ of an idea and then they would shape it. It was fascinating to watch how they put this show together.
That's wonderful. That just shows, like, it comes off. I'm lost for words, because every once in a while on this show, I'd be a bit taken aback with how it portrays alcoholism and drug addiction and poverty, warts and all. It's very much just like in your face. It's not pretty. And it would have been a hard sell for this show to even get onto TV in the States, particularly where everything seems so varnished. And I just wonder, what do you take away from that personally? How does it resonate with you that this show is very open about a very large part of the American population that sometimes we overlook?
Yes, I'm proud as punch to have been a part of this. You know, it was a British series first. And I had dinner with John once, and he said he decided early on that it had to take place in Chicago, right in the smack in the middle of the country. It couldn't be Southern. It couldn't be New York. It couldn't be California. It had to be America at its in the center. And he always wanted to give a voice to those people that are a paycheck away from homelessness. And I was really proud with some of the stories we told. Some of them were a little tough. And I know we lost some fans about halfway through, because you would see someone like Fiona starting to make it, starting to rise up, and then some boneheaded move and bam, she's in jail. She's back at the bottom. And audiences would say to me, I can't have my heart broken like that anymore. And a lot of them left for a while and then came back again. I'm also really proud of the way we dealt with sex. It was so matter of fact. It was so natural. It was without a charge. I remember when we did the pilot, I thought, well, the first year, certainly, I thought, we're talking about underage homosexuality here. I think the sword of Damocles is going to fall on our
Yeah.
necks. No, everyone accepted it. Everyone, because, you know, it's true. And I think one of the things the writers held themselves to is you can tell the most outrageous story you want, but you got to tell the truth about it. It's got to be a true story. It's got to speak to what it means to be a human being. And they were really good at that. And I think the actors were great too. I know every once in a while a plot line would come along that I would go, oh, guys, my feet are about 7 feet off the ground. This is so unlikely. And one of the things I learned about in a show, did you read The Outliers, you know, the 10,000 hours? It's too bad. I got my 10,000 hours in my final act of this career. But one of the things I took away from it is that the script is that those are just the words. Those are just the words. They can mean a lot of different things. So early in the seasons, I would fight about rewrites. I wanted to do it, make it more realistic, make it, and then because I got to go to work every day and got to see how it would come out, I realized it works out sometimes. And if you hew the line of trying to tell the truth of what's going on, you know, and be big and funny and figure out what's true for you, those words work for a lot of different objectives, is what I discovered. It's one of those things I knew as an actor, but I really experienced it. And some plot lines that I thought this will never work were fabulous. They took on, some alchemy goes on. And I think it has to do with the other actors bring their thing to it. The director brings his or her thing to it, and it works. And on paper, I thought this can't work.
Yeah, I originally thought so too. I thought this is a remake of a really popular British show. It's just, you know, people are probably not going to gravitate towards it. I was so wrong. I'm glad I was. And that's testament to it was being ahead of its time, had Showtime behind it, which obviously supported you guys 100%. Great team.
We would have these table reads and all the Showtime folks would come in and I would marvel. I'd look at them and they were like kids in a candy store. They had these smiles on their faces. They were so delighted to be there and to be making this TV show. It was great. Gary Levine, he would just guffaw. And they gave great notes. They didn't give a lot of notes. And I directed a couple of them. And one or two of the notes I'd go, I think that's nonsense. And they go, okay, just throwing it out there. And generally speaking, their notes were really cagey, really good. Those guys are good at what they do. They could do it professionally.
Yeah, right. But I don't want to, I don't think we can't put aside your contribution to the show. And I know, you know, being modest, you probably don't want to go into raptures about this, but I must say, like 6 Emmy nominations, 5 in a row, then you had a couple of years off at the Emmys. You won 3 SAGs for this show. You got 15 overall. You won 2 for Door to Door, which is one of my favorite TV movies. So like, what does it feel like? This is kind of an obvious question, but what does it feel like to have your peers respect you enough to just say, we love your work in this show. And by the way, here's a last hurrah because we know the show's over now.
It's flattering beyond belief. I think a lot of actors would agree. It gives one courage to be ratified in that way. I think sometimes when you're making a show, you think, is anyone watching this? You know what I mean? Is there anyone out there? And there are people out there. I've loved meeting the fans. I love that the SAG Awards in particular, I love that my fellow actors are digging what I'm doing. Going to these things, I see people that I only see at award shows, but I'm pretty much gobsmacked just like anyone else. I see these big fat movie stars and I cannot believe it. I'm agog and I have to screw up my courage to go introduce myself to them. It's really fun.
Yeah.
in a horrifying kind of way. Just sit there, you know. So I was always a supporting actor. That was my category for a long time. And it goes on first. So bam, out of the box, you lose. And then you sit there.
Oh man, I know, right? That brings me back 24 years ago. You were nominated for your breakthrough Oscar for supporting actor for Fargo. I would say, apart from Shameless, it's the one role that many of us attribute to you. And I looked at the footage the other day of you in the audience waiting for that category to be announced. And you obviously look much younger, but you just looked like so, I don't know what it was, but you just looked really innocent and in the moment and enjoying it. Was that true, or you just completely shitting yourself? And do you remember what it was like to be in that audience that night?
Yes, it was. It's one of those watershed moments. Your career is different after an Oscar nomination, and it was Billy Crystal, right? Didn't he? I think he started the thing. He looked out over it. He said, "Who are you people?" There's a lot of indies had gotten Oscar nominations. And,
it was Sundance by the Sea, I think he called it.
Yeah. I loved being there, and I took a big step forward of not feeling like an imposter, that maybe these are my peeps and I do belong here. And I was very, very proud to have been in Fargo, and I was proud of what I did. It felt righteous. And I was with Flicka, and we had a great time that night. We went to a lot of parties and we celebrated.
Yeah, that's probably the best part too. Bill, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure. Congrats on 11 great years on Shameless. I look forward to seeing more of you on my TV and film screen. Hopefully we'll see what happens.
Me too. I look forward to it too. I love television. Thanks for talking to me. This has been swell.